Tlachwasaach tu eich sa tini kat Johan. Ja ach llych gohas ane ka iechat wud tien sap ni du sag. Awe chosatin wat sich uwa reindeer ka ayu du sag. Wat sich uwa eka a da ye has ju wunean ja ach llych gohas ach ish du tla. Kanachawe has du dat you tuchotank you ja ach ish katu tla katu ish zu. Awe we yis shkalneek aya chosaku ja at kotini adach stekka hat die kanachi idee ʼatudli.átk aya ja ach shagun zu aya chosaku ka stekka hat die tlachonach yewe adati tachotank ayagi data tinach sachat geti qonneqa iikhallatu ja llingit tlda saayach kugewe hayuchatangi adriwan qanins achtut wuhih aadé aya qa ika kwallatu ya adriya kina kudasi yekhwa yekhaqwus we qatlain ayikh satien yidetqo ach ayi Pendleton you do a sock hasawe outlayech we kunachawe khat do a sai one qanins we wanna do gaawú tin would do tlayech John qo ach tuasagu yekhwa o yikh akwus qo ya adu kudasi sa wutien yata Yisikuke adu ayich satien ach kuatlatu yi
Richard Dowenhower, okay.
Ye owe hwayi nak kudasi tutle aya hanak hukud khechne khant khagudi Ye owe tlek de hin khanakawni gachtuasagu ejiye qati ya du kudasi du kina kudasi Adrewan qanins yekhwa u qa gwall dawkhun we kunachyak kina kudasi erji dawati awa akhi aqa awe ya yidat du datawe yutakhwatank qanachawe wooch'ín akkutu shuqan atshuk aya naqsati qal atshuk qa qisakhan qatilla antin hegach tlashkegach tzi hayejni yallingich tu take the hin hatuasagu just lingit qatangitin wooch'ín yakutusti Eshui aya you do a sag we an kasit itiqi de khasai qudzati akaye ha wutien khatak shuhichen just qonnesh to khol tu klingit eqa 1996 so qonnesh to khol tu we yata qo immersion you do a sag atlet khakinach Ja uhan qo at kwashkasha saay qhusti yal llingit yuqatangi tade gachtu awe aqe ha wutien wan qanins ye awe yaudist ye awe yaudu waqa klesh gleit qa qinach just llingit we do khwainaq Qaha khuni qashkhishti chudakhnach yuha chudakhnach has qashia dehini yuqatangi has awsaku aqa awe khwa wooch'ín yu has qawal atkin a new team has du yat auch tlaqen ka ye has yax ka kach enach wanani sewe qone aya wuchin yu has khawr atken German yu khatangitin Deutsch aqa awe zu ye has yax ka kach enach aqa awe English aya ach ye khat yausqa khwainak. But we're not speaking English. Ye yausqaqa kleid qa qinach chaltakatas aqa at tushuk. Just qusakhan tin qatlan. Wasahatu ke wuchin khasati. Yat atsu yiqaqwus itqa shukwa kwal wuchin yiqaqtla klinget qinach kwali tuati aqa yi inka konik kleid qa qinach ya chaltakat atawe dasayi yaxsaqa ya yidat yitua gesagu yiqi watani klinget qinach qakwati guk
Ish dutla kra du ish sami utusati.
ach ish du tla sami khusati ach ish du ish yupik qa English ja ach ish du tla du ish qa ach ish du tla wooch has would shine Alaska sami khasati qa kauta kino dach
Wasa do a sock Sami Chatangi.
Sami
So Sami Ani wasa do a sock.
Sapmi
Sapmi.
Sapmi Sapmi
Goodness cheese.
Sapmi okay yeah okay
Just slap myself to a cook day eat a good slap myself
yeah
yes cool ya actually just yeah ye that shoot ach the ak just yeah yeah slap myself to a skatini
Khatseach tu yek satini kan chish ye awe kwal takqa ani eqa yest quha aqa tak de yakunahin ya qa yes klashwatu satin qa kahwan kwal kahwan yisatini saku eqa tak de yakunahin shukwa ayawe kahwan itqa Ayanach Linux, we kahwech katsik shaltin. Okay, Gulchish.
Wasa anu shatin
Anushi yukatangitin. Yeah, okay. So let's yeah, we'll do a little recap of the things I was saying. Unless anybody else wants to say anything in Lingi. It's always optional, it's always good. Okay. So I think I started with, and as we go along, we're just at the start of our semester. I'll usually speak Tlingit at the beginning of class, and then I will ask you folks to translate what I said for me. And I'll say, I forgot what I said. Let's see. I say it was really good to see you all. I'm grateful for you all. I was in the country of my ancestors on my father's side, and the land is called Sapmi. We were working with reindeer. I was meeting relatives. Lots and lots to talk about. There's like a whole documentary that's going to come out I think in January. So let's all go to Sweden. We'll go to Sweden. We'll watch it together. It'll be lots of fun. Speak Tlingit. I walked all over Norway speaking Tlingit with my kids. Our oldest spoke a lot of Tlingit while she was over there. She was really trying to stay in Tlingit the whole time. Let's see. And then I think I talked. Well, I do sometimes forget what I say, which is fun. I remember, okay, I'm going to sidetrack us a little bit here. One time we used to dance with Qaisan dancers. And Nora Marks Dowenhauer had this way of just throwing you onto the fire sometimes. And so I think maybe the dance group would need a little break. And so she'd say, Rene's going to talk to you in Tlingit. And you're like, oh, I didn't know. So then you just had to be ready. And so one time she did that and she said, Nakashan is going to talk to you in Tlingit. And he got up there and he talked for quite a while. I was listening to what he said and it was all good. It's great stuff. Then he got done and he said, he's going to translate for, we got to translate for everybody these days. And he started to translate and he says, I forgot what I said. And everybody laughed, but then I just had this realization, like, that's the point you want to get to, where you're not translating it from English to Tlingit, you're just speaking Tlingit. And so then when you go to recap, you're like, what was I saying? Yeah, and so our goal is to get to that point. So some of the other things I think I was saying is the language.
German and other languages.
Yeah. So I was saying like Tlingit is a big language. It's irreplaceable. Nothing measures up to it. And so sometimes I get worried about how I'm going to teach people, what I'm going to do. So I decided to wear this shirt today because it belonged to Richard Dowenhauer. And Nora gave it to me. Then I wanted to tell a little story about Richard Dowenhauer because he was a big teacher of mine, big time inspiration. He had this job that I have before me, and we used to like to laugh a lot. So we were at a language immersion 20 years ago. 20 years ago. I started studying Tlingit in 1996. In 2003, which I guess is 21 years ago now, we went to Glacier Bay for this immersion. Keishi, Bessie Cooley was there. Kakashat, Florence Shakely was there. Kehinak, John Martin was there. Kinkau Paul Marks was there. Toonéi, Nora Marks Dowenhauer was there. Huayinak, Richard Dowenhauer was there. Kasech, Selena Everson was there. Oonx'í, June Peggy was there. I think that was most of this. Oh, Saydeya, Mary Anderson was there. That's when I first met her. And so it was wonderful and it was challenging. And we would have this thing that we would say to each other, which was, so that's, no English, only Tlingit. That's how we would sort of translate that. And Richard Dowenhauer and another brilliant linguist was sitting there. His name was Roy Mitchell. He was bringing us this real concept of immersion in this really fascinating way. And I was sitting by there and I was listening to everything that was going on. And then I heard them talking to each other and I listened and I could tell that they were speaking to each other. I don't know Russian, but I could hear. I knew what I was hearing. And I knew they both spoke multiple languages, right? And I knew they both spoke Russian. So I leaned over to them and I said, and so then I went back to listening and then a few minutes go by and they start talking to each other in German. And their German, like especially Richard Dowenhauer, his German was better than his Russian. That's what he told me. And so I leaned over to them. I said, and they said, but we're not speaking English. And I said, yeah, but I said, all the none of it here. And then we all laughed about it. So I wasn't being oppressive. I wasn't being discriminatory, but it was a funny moment. And so we all laughed about it. And so I shared that sort of story with you folks. And thinking about our approach to language learning when it comes to like moving from intermediate to advanced with all of our goals. I think some of the things I just want to state repeatedly is that I don't believe there are mistakes in language learning. I think it's all just language learning. And so the work that we do is not about right and wrong, and it's not about getting things perfect. It's just about using the language and continuing to grow what we know and understand about this incredibly amazing and complicated language that is Tlingit. So our goal is to balance things, speaking it, listening to it, getting the grammar part of it, filling our boxes of stuff. So like, here's these types of things. You gotta learn a whole bunch of those things. And then I think the glue that holds it all together is this combination, whatever you believe, of your subconscious and the spirit and the way that those things interact. That sort of things that happen while you're sleeping or praying or meditating or just, I don't know. There's these moments sometimes that are really interesting in my language journey that I remember, where I would stand up and say something and I would sit down, especially if it was a high intensity moment, like speaking at a funeral or giving a speech in front of these elders. Sometimes I would sit down and I would think, I didn't know I knew how to say that thing. That was kind of cool. And then other times I would get stuck, and some of these teachers, like Ruth Demert, we knew each other so well that she would finish my sentences for me. Like, she knew what I was trying to say. And it was such a cool moment. Like, I remember that distinctively out in Chilkoot when we had an immersion out there. So sometimes in our class, we're going to simulate this immersion environment. We're going to have tools and techniques. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared. Don't worry. Just go for it. You just have to go for it. And then we're going to do this sort of dedicated study of the components of the verb. So a lot of what we're doing this semester is very verb-heavy stuff, because we have to understand how these things work. And once you unlock the verb, you unlock the language. You do. Because if you could do verbs, everything else is just like remembering the word for this, the word for that. Like, the verbs are the heart of the whole thing. And so we're using a color-coded system to learn how verbs work. We're going to start from the stuff before the verb and then get into the prefix, move our way through there, and we're going to use a whole bunch of examples. And so what we're going to be starting with is the story ʼatudli.átk. My kids are studying this in their class, so we're going to study it along with them. And what we're going to do is we'll read some lines, look at the translation, and then we're going to look for certain things that we're studying. So that's a lot of what we're going to do. And then especially on the Wednesday classes, I'll be giving you stuff to do over the weekend, which is usually going to be your language production time. So I'll be, translate these 10 sentences, say 10 things about this. So I'm going to try to balance sort of this exercise type of work where it's like, translate this to this, right? So you'll be doing a little bit of that, and then you'll be doing a little bit of come up with something on your own. So for example, if two people spoke only Tlingit, or if two people spoke Tlingit, could you describe the difference between a mink and a marten using Tlingit? Those things are very similar. But I've
Like,
To do it in English,
I couldn't describe them in English because I don't know what the difference between them is.
Yeah.
They're like both weasels, basically.
They are weasels. Okay, so what's the difference between what's a mink and what's a marten? Do we know that?
Aren't minks more arboreal, like something? Right?
It's arboreal.
Like they climb in trees.
Oh, okay.
Forest.
Like, I'm pretty sure I saw a nature documentary of them like massacring a few squirrels,
Yeah. Well, the
My cat is very curious now.
douche had something to say about this. yelling at us about, you don't know the difference. So,
Mink and what?
what's that?
Martin? The mink, the other one you said?
Mink.
Mink and Martin? Okay.
So,
Okay, so maybe this is one of our goals. Okay.
I think Martin's bigger than mink.
Okay.
Martin, in the winter are late. Yeah,
That's
what?
an ermine. Okay, so now we gotta
Damn it! I thought I knew.
well, let's throw ermine in there because all three of these get very okay, and it's not just us. Okay, let me give you a little bit of backstory on this. We went to the visitor center at this glacier that is called ʼatudli.átk. I don't care who Mendenhall is, that's not his glacier. Never was, never will be. ʼatudli.átk is the name of that glacier.
Or sit on taco.
Or sit on tagu. Yes, it has two names. Yes, correct. And so those are the two acceptable names for that glacier. We were out there with my kids, and they have this very cool visitor center. And there's a whole bunch of little animals in there. And at this one section, they had this like little nature scene, I don't know. And they're like little footprints. I was talking to my kids, and I said, Yehoji, oonx'í aya. Gwash nukshiyan, yewe achtundatani ko ayeti. Aya, ayanach yigea, wik ayanach kayagea. I guess I should say ayanach iklage. And keshkeka chosakukoa. Gwashwe jneya haskagachtuwus, guk haskanawus. But my kids they're little and they're very shy. So it's like, oh, so then I went and I asked them. So I went to one of the people, like a park ranger, who I would assume knows the difference between a mink and a marten. I don't know why. I guess because it says U.S. Forest, or like they work for the forest. That's what my mind was saying. And so I just grabbed someone. I was like, "Hey, what kind of footprints are these?" They said, "I don't know." And then they just walked away. I thought they were there to answer questions and stuff, but maybe.
No, that's what we're there for.
Right. See, so now we're taking over, right? It's very similar to, I had this similar experience where there was a group of us that were in this play. We're doing Macbeth, and we had to get stage makeup. So there's me and someone else who's a language teacher now. And he was probably 12 or 13 years old, maybe at the time. I was like, I don't know what to do for stage makeup. I've never gotten that before. And they said, just go to like CVS. It's like a big pharmacy, right? And so it's like one of these big like Walgreens type of, like they got stores all over the place. So you go in and they all wear like these white lab coats that says CVS on it, or like a little red vest that says CVS on it. And that's how you go ask them the question. So then I went up and we walked in, and someone's walking up the aisle with that uniform on. And I said, excuse me. And they said, I don't even work here. And then they just walked past me. And I said, that's not fair. And so I kind of felt like that with the mink and marten question, where I felt like I was thoroughly dismissed. And so I was frustrated. But one of our exercises, what if we had until Monday to come up with as many ways we can talk about the differences, if we had to explain both what a ermine, mink, and marten are, and how they're similar, and how, if we had to explain how they're different and what they are. Now you've got a week to figure that out, both what they actually are and to we'll translate some of those sentences.
Can we add kushta and yacht as well?
Well, if we add kushta and yacht, okay, we're going to do the whole weasel family. Then we got, okay, what are all our weasels?
News.
Nusk, da,
Yacht,
yacht,
kushta,
kushta, kuch.
Shnuxian.
Nukshian. Sagati. A weasel?
It's a rodent.
Snake.
Sagati?
I don't know what a beaver classifies as.
Kashakach. I'm saying these are all in the same family.
They're the same family.
Now we have 8 things, okay? Someone just dropped the gun.
So we gonna get a list for those of us who are slow?
Yes, so I will make a list. And okay. Yes. Let me make that list right now. That's in the dark. Yeah, okay. First, here's an exercise in transcription and translation first, before we make our list of our weasel list. Okay, let me get this ready. So if I said, let me try and make sure I say this phrase the way I want to. Tzatzi nadaguyach. I guess that's cha'a. Tzatzi nadaguyach cha'a. So
You're asking what does that mean?
well, we're gonna do transcription and translation. So our first step is to accurately write down what I just said. Tzatzi nadagu yach cha'a.
Yes.
Yes.
A.
ATS. Pinch. EE. Longy.
Tzatzi nadagu yach cha'a.
Nadagu.
Nadagu.
NADAAGU high tone? No. Oh,
AA should be high tone.
Yeah, the next one. And then GU.
Ya. Wait, I'm not gonna give you one more. Tzatzi nadagu yach cha'a.
Why high tone A?
Yach.
AA under X.
Tzatzi nadagu yach cha'a.
Suyanaka.
Tzatzi nadagu yach cha'a.
Underline X. A dot AA.
Yes. Okay. Okay. If you haven't done this type of work before, don't panic. Some have done some of this work before, but just like writing down the tlingit as we hear it, right? Which takes tzatzi nadagu yach but people don't talk like that, right? Tzatzi nadagu yach. Now, let's translate it.
Small bird.
Songbird.
Just a bird. Just a bird. It is a small.
Table.
Table. I found at the end.
What's at the end?
A relational term word thingy.
Yeah. So how are we going to take care of that in the English side?
The bird table.
Birds.
Gets us to yach cha'a.
Face,
Light.
okay, I'll just say it. Face I'm sitting on.
Well, that would be maybe like that.
Or plank.
Yach.
Board.
So yach is a directional term. and you could use it. So I could say nadak yach. I could say yach, heen yach.
Oh, it's
Is it like on the surface?
along the side of it,
It's here.
in front.
Oh,
Edge.
Uh,
Yach.
oh, I remember that. Yeah.
So a lake. This is a lake shore. This is a riverbank. This is the edge of the table. So if you want to tell your people, whoever they are, to sit at the table, nadak yach kai pit. But what's the cha'a part? Oops, sorry, I'm not looking at the chat.
I'm eating.
That would be cha'a.
Is it I found?
Is it like the?
Sitting.
It would be chwat'e. I did
Is it like
hear.
the bird sound?
I am sitting.
Oh yeah.
So now this is sort of our. I always like translation is a bit of a. For me, it's a kind of a three-step process, or this transcription translation. We were talking about this, I think, before we started recording. So the transcription part is writing down the tlingit. Then I usually end up with sort of a word-by-word kind of translation, and then I have like, how would you say the same thing in English? What am I saying? It's in the dagu ya cha'a.
You're sitting at the squeaky table.
Yeah, so there is one table in this classroom when you move, it squeaks. I move a lot, and I don't like sitting at this table because it's squeaky and I'm easily distracted. Which is evidenced by the fact that I came here to make a list of rodents and I ended up at the birds table. It's like that, I don't know, that movie with the dog. There's squirrel. We might have to add squirrel to this now.
I think we're getting into rodent territory.
There's no end. No end to it. Well, there is. Okay, so what did we name? We'll do tlingit first, and then we'll do the English.
Luxia.
Da.
Wait, we gotta do the English first. Hold on.
Oh,
It's a mink.
Yes. Same or different?
Oh, da yes. No, yeah, same.
Okay.
It's like it's in its summer color.
Nusk.
Pushka.
Isitinige we nusk. Patkika. Was a teen. I've only seen one twice.
I guess I saw one in one time.
A kushta.
Kushta.
My mom's got a good story of one trying to kill her tire.
Really?
They had one of those little donut tires on. They couldn't drive very fast, and it was chasing them down the road.
Achadi. My mother-in-law saw one walking through her yard here in June. What?
What the heck is it? What is a kushta?
Oh yeah, that's
Sea otter?
river otter.
river otter, land otter. Yeah.
Yeah. Sea otter. What else do we have?
Yak. We have that.
What is that?
Kook.
Oh, cool. That's what like hak enach.
Martin.
Cicady.
Not actually a weasel.
Beaver.
Maybe it's weasel adjacent.
Porcupine.
Suck is no.
If we're gonna do ʼatudli.átk, then there's one more we have to do. Maybe two.
Give me a moment.
Poutine?
Okay, yes.
Sask.
Chipmunk.
Okay, now we have to do that one too.
Is it a groundhog?
Groundhog?
Yes. So,
Some kind of squirrel, isn't it?
Already ground squirrel.
and what else did I hear?
Would flying squirrel be different?
How do you, is it, I think it's that? ʼatudli.átk. Someone trying to say something?
I said chipmunk earlier, but
Okay.
I can't remember.
I said poutine earlier too.
Okay.
We're getting into the rodent category.
What's I do a sock fisher?
Sure.
Oh,
You know what that is? What is that?
Kushta.
sick. They're another weasel. They're really rare, but they're big, bigger than marten, built kind of like marten,
Is it a
but
musk?
darker. Not a
That's
muskrat.
in?
Not a muskrat?
No, it's weasel, big weasel.
It's more like the size of a river otter, and they're in Canada, right?
I think we get them on the coast too, but
What? The fisher? Okay, hold on. Oops.
Oh.
Let's see if it's on our list of.
That's a agana.
What about? What about? We're doing squirrel. Do we do rabbit?
These are more rodents, you know? It's like
Yeah.
it all went off the rails at Sagadi.
Jigax is a poutine and jigax. What do you call that thing? It's like a little field mouse, I guess.
Field mouse.
They're the little teeny ones.
Do we have moles here?
too wet, they drowned.
Okay. Let me check muskrat. Yeah. Okay. That's a pretty good list. Okay, so I think what I'll do is I'll share this list. I'll put it in the chat, and that way we'll have a record of it. Oh, there's some cool pictures in there. I'll look for fisher. I'll see if we can find a word for it, if there is one.
Sheesh.
Let's see. I gotta put it on here, else I'll forget fisher. Okay. So let's, between what your folks, what your mission is to come up with one descriptive sentence for each of these. Okay, we don't have to talk about, you're not explaining the difference between them, but you have to come up with one descriptive sentence for each. And it would be somebody's typing. Okay. This one is a really, really tight. It would be slightly ʼatudli.átk if a lot of these sentences were the same. It's brown. It's also brown. Right? So try and think of distinctive characteristics or slightly different things to say about each one. And you cannot protest me putting a beaver in there. I can put it in there if I want to.
Yádi, gun, acha.
Yeah, right? Right? And so feel free to ask questions as we go along if you're trying to figure out how to say these things. So also don't, think of things that you know how to say, but then also think of things like, oh, I wish I knew how to say this type of thing.
I guess it would be asacha.
The whole list is not in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where did it stop?
We have just the first page. We did it on the, yeah.
Oh. Where did it, how come, okay.
Oh.
There, I think I got it. Okay, oonx'í. Okay.
Gach, sin, acha. Actually, I don't think they do that.
No. Okay, so if you were naming some things, so if you want to say, this thing eats that thing. So for the first one you name, so this is wild, because Tlingit likes to go object, subject, root, right? And there's a classifier, there's other stuff in there. Do the object first and then the subject, right? When we're talking about the verb. But if we're putting the list of things in front of the verb, we do the subject first, then the object. So if the marten eats the rabbit, ooh, acha. Okay. So you have a week, and we have these wonderful rodents to just talk about. There's no right or wrong way to do it. If you're collaborating and working together with anyone, make sure your sentences are a little different. Or at least try to. Okay.
I have a question. So if I was going to use tzafk, and I quoted from Kakachkuk, tzafki chu, away at Tuskiechen. They used to make those robes out of ground squirrel. Could I use that? Or does this have to be a description of ground squirrel?
Well, it should. I think if you find some sentences that, if you find a sentence and you want to share it with us, or if you know a sentence that someone has said, that's very cool. I encourage you to share it with us and to also write your own sentence. But if you wanted to use that, or what if we did this, since we're at the early stage of the semester too, if you found a sentence like that, could you change it a little bit? So like you say, okay, I found this sentence and I changed it to say, people use marten skins. Here's another fun Richard Dowenhauer story. The first time he met my great-grandfather had this thing where he would sometimes make a voiced L sound where there's an N sound, right? So his name was Bert Dennis. His Tlingit name was oonx'í. And they went to go record him while they were on their way to record Tom Peters telling the woman who offended the bear story. which is also a whole other story, which maybe we'll talk about on Wednesday. So when he met Bert Dennis said this.
I came out. I made sushi. I came back.
Oh, so he said, but Dennis. That's how he said his own name, Bert Dennis. So he said Dennis. And he says, tell me about model skills. Richard Downhour was like, model skills. And I think they saw like his confusion on his face. And so his wife, whose name was ʼatudli.átk, she was Dr. Marion Dennis, she said, marten skins. He wants you to tell him what you know about marten skins. And so, but he said model skills because Tlingit was his first language. And he also had this sound pattern replacement thing that Susie James also had. Okay. We're a little bit all over the place today. That's my fault. But I'm also, if I were back where I was a couple days ago, it would now be 8 in the morning. So it's interesting. Going through, we went through the syllabus. I'll repost it. We kind of got a plan. And what our plan is to start talking about the Tlingit verb. And a bunch of our conversations revolve around our understanding of the verb. So what we want to do is there's this document called the Tlingit Verb Components Handbook. There's like a whole board game that goes with this thing. And my goal is by very soon, the next month or so, this document will be pretty much complete. The goal is for it's going to describe every single one of these things. These are the main parts of a Tlingit verb, especially like from here, the object through the stem. That is your most important piece. It's the most common thing. We're going to talk about all of these things. We're going to go this one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. We're going to go through all of these things through this semester. We're showing you a bunch of examples, and then we're going to go into duktut, and then once we're done with duktut, we'll go into another. So we'll use these stories that some of us have already studied, and we're going to say, now we're going to go in here, find all these preverbs. Show me all the preverbs you could find in this story. That way you're going back into the story with a specific mission. So that's one sort of component of what we do. The other part of it is our language production piece, where I'll say, for example, write a sentence about all these things that I consider to be in the same family. And we'll pick different sort of things to write about. And some of these, and so these are going to be sort of our weekly language production things. And then we're going to have our grammar understanding things with the goal, like our whole goal is by the end of this year, you should be able to take a look at a document, which is the Book of Themes. So here's, hold on, let me open it. So there's this document called the themes, right? This is just a bunch of verb themes. I'm going to update this. But if we just went to a spot and let's say, here's a verb, right? So this does not show you any examples of this verb. There's no sample sentence. It doesn't show you what it looks like in the perfective or the future. But if I showed you this and I said, okay, use this in the perfective. I want you to say, I prayed. You should be able to look at this, and look at all this information and say, and you should be able to do it pretty fast. But that's by the end of this whole year, is to be not needing a whole dictionary that gives you all these examples, not needing a database that shows you how to conjugate this in all these different ways. You should be able to look at this and say, this tells me everything I need to use this verb. And so we'll talk about that. And that doesn't mean you need to know it now. That doesn't mean you need to have studied this stuff before. You don't need any of, like, you don't have to have any of this sort of knowledge beforehand. No matter where you're at in your language journey, you're in the right place. Like, all these roads lead to where we are right now, and we're here together. We're doing this work together. We help each other out. We support each other. We don't make fun of each other. We don't criticize each other. These are my hopes. These are the things I'm trying to sort of get us established in. And that kind of brings us to this video I was trying to get us to watch. I don't think I can embed a link. I don't know what happens. So when I'm using this ʼatudli.átk thing that's called Blackboard, but I don't even know it's called Blackboard anymore. You Blackboard people out there, coming for you. So I used to be able to just like copy a link and paste it, and I would send an email to the class, and everybody would have this link. But now when I send it, it's just like a blank thing. I don't know. This is the video that I want us to watch. So this is Anya Shahash, Sam Johnston. This was recorded in Daysleen a year ago, I think, last summer. And so I had some questions to ask him, and so you'll hear me ask him the questions, and then he has some responses to my question. And so between now and Wednesday, since the link wouldn't work, I'll put it in the chat. It'll work in the chat. Blackboard, fix your stuff. So let me copy this link. And then get it to you folks.
I was able to find it by searching YouTube.
Oh,
That's how I found all those other fun links.
I just typed it in into Google and found it, and then I'm like, oh, it's Herman. I should listen to Herman later on too.
Okay.
And I found a playlist that had one that was subtitled and one that was not.
Oh, yeah, I think I have two different versions of that same video up for some reason. And so it has been transcribed and translated. So there is a version with subtitles. And you can watch it with subtitles. It's totally fine. And what we're going to do is we're just going to talk about that. It's got some great things that he shared with us. And we'll talk about that on Wednesday. We'll also talk about some sentences. So in the syllabus, and I'm sure you folks went over these already, but I just want to revisit these 4 sentences here. So on Wednesday, we'll make sure that we understand everything that is told to us in these 4 sentences in our syllabus. If you need the syllabus, it's on. I think in the future, what I'll do now that I didn't have very reliable internet service or cell service where I was at, but now that I'm back, I think what my approach will be is to use the email to say, hey, go check our class webpage because there's some stuff that I put on there. And I'll just put it all on the webpage because I understand how that thing works generally. So if you go to tlingitlanguage.com, under Learning Tlingit and Advanced Tlingit, that's our class page. And so that's where I'll post any of the handouts that we do. So like as we go through a class, if there's questions, I'll usually have like a set of notes like this. And I will make these notes as we're going through. I know Zoom has like a whiteboard thing. I think I tried it and I didn't particularly like it, but we might try it again because it's interactive, which is kind of fun because I'm the only one who could type in this. And we will need to do exercises where we'll all have chances to collaborate and to type our answers. But if I'm typing notes through the class, I will export this as a PDF and then I'll make it available through. And so basically at the end of the class, usually in that evening, I put the recording on YouTube of the class, and then I put any of the materials that we covered as links under the handouts section. So that's usually my approach to this content, and we will go through the preverb starting on Wednesday. So make sure you've read this section on the preverb. So basically this, if you go here, this is interactive, so you can just click this and this takes you to the preverb section. And this is all color coded, which I know is not going to work for everybody. Not everybody can see colors the same. I had an auntie who used to wake me up because she went to work before I did, and we all lived with my grandma, and she'd shake me and be like, "What?" She'd be like, "Does this match?" Because she was completely colorblind. She couldn't, and I was like, "Sure." You know, and sometimes I would help her and make sure like she was matching, but sometimes I'm like, it's close enough. I'm done. But the goal for this, I guess, the inspiration was looking at some of the Haudenosaunee languages, Mohawk, Oneida, and others that were color coding their language. And so the idea here is for us to see the verb in these little things, right? These are the main things of the verb. We're going to learn what these things are, what kinds of things are in them and what they do, and how they interact with each other. That's the magic. If you can unlock that, you've unlocked the verb and how it worked. Especially this little gray section right here. These little ones do a lot of work for us. But we got the whole semester to talk through this stuff. So Anashahash, the things that he has to say, we're going to talk about that on Wednesday. We're going to talk about the preverb. And we're going to start doing a slow read of the story Duktuk, looking for the preverb, looking for the object pronoun, looking at how these things work. And then we will be doing, where do we find this file? So let's see. If anybody knows anyone at Google, I'm trying to get them to like add this thing to like whatever the wallpaper thing.
Yeah.
Oops.
Tell Jamie, she'll help make it happen.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. She's really close with them.
I talked to this one artist that I know who has like did a homepage thing. And I was like, who do I talk to? They're like, talk to this person. It's like, we don't do this. It was like a competition or something. I don't know. Anyways, shkalneek.com. So this is shkalneek.com. This is where I keep links to all the resources and stuff that I work on. There is a second edition of the Tlingit dictionary that is out now. I need to update all of my links so that you folks can have that. I'm retyping the Tlingit verb dictionary and incorporating everything into the dictionary from there. But for now, like learning Tlingit, advanced Tlingit, this is our class web page. So this has all the resources that I think you will need. Some of the things that we'll be using a lot in here. Probably get us down to these Tlingit verb notes, which I think are wonderful. I'll make sure, I gotta check these links and make sure this is the newest versions that we have. And we'll talk about this stuff, like we'll spend some time on Wednesday going through these resources in case some of these are new to you. The Tlingit dictionary, this noun list is very important. I'd recommend that. In parentheses, it says this is a numbers document, this is an Excel document, this is an HTML document. But if you go down, here's the syllabus for our class. Here is what I will do this evening is I'll post this recording of this class, and there'll also be handouts, and in handouts will be the notes, and then the readings, which will be including Tlingit verb components, which I'll put in the chat as well since someone asked for it. Any thoughts or questions before we go?
Chwaach, yeah, tsatsi nadagu.
Drives me a little nuts, but it's also I also kind of like it. Okay, before we go, someone has to tell me how to say, in a command form, peel the potato. Because somebody asked me this today. So this requires some investigation. So one of the things we are going to become very familiar with, oops, hold on. Let me open a different version of this document. So all roads eventually lead back to this wonderful text, which is yellow in other forms. And so what we're going to do is open the bookmarks, go down to the letter P in the English section, scroll down, and this gets us to peel. Looking through, so we see several options. To peel, pare by cutting, peel skin, pare by tearing, peel off bark from the tree, peel off skin from a dead creature, peel off skin of fish using your thumb. Those are your peel options here. So Tlingit loves categories. It loves categories. There's often different verbs for doing a very similar thing. Now we get into our investigation phase. So here I have a theory. If any of you have access to a speaker, ask them how to command someone to peel a potato. I think it would be ʼatudli.átk. I think that's what it would be. One of the difficulties here is this gives us an imperfective form. It's happening right now. ʼatudli.átk. But there's a similar verb to this, which is to plane. So we're going to go down a little bit to plane. Ayanach kausakak achawe ayech. It's too thick, and so they are planing it. So that might lead us to, and so this is some of the work that we're also going to be doing this semester, is learning and practicing how to investigate verbs. So then we find the verb root is yech. We might find whittle, make, use. These are all zero act verbs. So to whittle it, you would say kayech. So that means, I think, if you were to command someone to plane it, like, to shave it down flat, I think you would just say yech. And I think because you have a similar sort of set of verbs, to peel a potato, I think you would, this is my theory, is you would say da, ka, yech. It's a zero act verb. That means in the command form, we expect the stem to be short and high. There doesn't need to be any pronoun there because it's minus D. We'll learn all of this stuff. But what I want you folks to really be able to do is to look at this verb dictionary and to know what kind of parts aren't there and to fill them in with what you know about Tlingit. Similarly, I think you would say oonx'í das et. Rip it off rip around it is basically what you're saying. Plane around it. So peel a potato. I learned a new verb today, so I wanted to share it with you.
A couple random questions. So one of those was talking about peeling off the skin of a dead creature.
Mm-hmm.
So would it be different if you were peeling the skin off of a live creature?
Yeah, I think so. I think you would probably end up using this one actually. Um, and so, but to help answer that, so like if we look at glue, like
Well, I'm talking about bears peeling off the skin of live salmon.
oh yeah, that would probably be ʼatk, I think. So you would go back to probably the ripping verb. So like this is to plane or to whittle. This is to tear. Gluch and gleuch probably have a similar sort of thing.
And so what if you were peeling dead skin off of a live creature?
Only interesting do we ask these questions?
Lear's verb notes has a bunch of different peeling verbs.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Well, this is a really good time to get into. So we'll spend a lot of time in the Tlingit verb dictionary, and we'll also spend a lot of time, and I'll link everything that we look at when we go to tlingitlanguage.com, learning Tlingit, advanced Tlingit. So what I also do is I say, oh, we looked at this, we looked at that. I'll put links to all those documents in there at the end of every class, just so you don't have to keep digging around for them. So one of the things, so
actually, I see the answer is down lower. It says peel off, especially skin of fish.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, except they're not using their thumb.
I don't think so. Yeah, no. So here is Jeff Lear's verb notes. And so these are handwritten notes that he had done on like a legal tablet, like a yellow legal tablet. And he just put down like as many, it's got so many verbs in there. So many. And so if we go down to, like if we look for yech, or, you know, there's different ways we could do this. Like we could do a search for peel. And we say a wooch. So now we've got something even different, right? A gaawú, they have peeled it, is eating it by taking out the edible part with the back of the thumb. So this is that gleuch verb. So it has something to do with pushing it out specifically with your thumb. Is peeling it, dry fish off of skin, a gluch, skin of a dead creature is being torn off. And then we've got peeling it, especially bark, and then peeling it a tough object, a dahu. But it might not have the peeling the potato one in here. But anyways.
I did find fly, which is quiche. Quiche.
Yeah, well, a ʼate is, so that's getting into, if we're to find these in the verb dictionary, they would be under skin. So we're going to go to S. It's like these little birds are helping us. It's chirping through our work. Okay. So under skin, you have jigax and you have ʼate. So these are two different ways to remove the skin of an animal. There's, well, like say you killed a rabbit, like so there's certain animals where you basically cut the skin off and then you can rip it, the whole thing off, usually right over the head. But some of these, the basic difference between these two is this one, you are peeling it to remove it. And you don't have a plan to do anything with that skin. It's like discard. This one, you are carefully removing it because you want to do something with that skin and turn it into a hide. And then as you look, so like, one of the things that I want you folks to learn how to do, and we'll have a lot of time to figure out this stuff, is to be able to look at this and say, okay, this is an L classifier, quiche, is the verb root. We look at these two examples. This gives you the imperfective, which is important because the verb stem is impossible to predict in the imperfective. You just have to get it. But then it also gives you this repetitive imperfective, which starts with U and ends with a K. So this must be n conjugation. So now we could write a whole theme. We could write the whole theme for it. It's an act verb because it has an imperfective. And it's n conjugation because we could tell that right here. And now I could say, Tuwakan nashag'ish. That's the command form for skin the deer. Okay.
You know, toonéi, that quiche, it doesn't mean you're going to throw it away because zisk quiche, but it just means you're a bit rougher with it, maybe. Like when she, when Slagoon tells that story about her grandfather shooting a big grizzly and they skin it carefully, she uses ʼatudli.átk, like, because they are taking good care of it, but just generally it would be oonx'í for like just about anything, I think, but
Sheesh. Yeah, so I guess maybe it's more about like bigger cuts and a little bit of pulling, whereas like ʼatudli is more like it's all cut. Like, yeah, it's sheesh. Okay, good stuff. Okay. Okay. Anything else before we go? Chirp, chirp, chirp. Okay, great stuff. So make sure you understand that whole, everything in that section on the preverb, right? So like, and even if you don't understand it, ask any questions you have. So we will start, when we start class on Wednesday, I'm going to speak Tlingit for a while. And I'm just going to ask you to tell me what you heard. And then the secret is usually I think of it right when class starts. I was like, oh, I'll talk about this. And so I have a concept of a plan. And so then we'll start with like, I'll speak Tlingit. And then usually what I'm going to ask you folks is say, anybody want to say anything? So any Tlingit you want to share with us, just bring it. It doesn't have to relate to what I say. It's not a response to what I say. You can respond to what I say if you want to. But then we'll just talk for a little while, and when it feels like we're sort of exhausted of the conversation, then we'll go into the translation of what I had said, where I'll ask you to translate some of that, and then I'll fill in the rest. And then we're going to talk about the preverb of the verb itself. We'll look at that chapter. We'll look at all the examples it shows us. And then we'll read some lines from Duktuk just to get us familiar with it. But before we move into that preverb, we're going to collectively, we'll all rewatch the Anashahash Sam Johnston video, and we'll just talk about that for a little bit as well. So, Garchi Shuhan, Ye Wushgach Tustin Naskyagi Khana.
Ye Kwasati.
Sheesh. Question.
Sheesh.
Sheesh.
Sheesh.